Welcome to the penultimate Q&A for the BEPIC London International Film Festival, the 5th annual BEPIC London International Film Festival, this year for the first time online for obvious reasons. Let's not go into that. So we're going to be talking about two films today, two films that are at part of the festival. You Can Kiss Me, and we're going to be talking to Jan Jelinek and Jay Feather. That's the writer, director, and the director of photography. And we're also going to be talking about How to Bend Concrete in 108 Easy Steps. And we'll be talking to Mahesh Madhav, the director, producer, and editor, and possibly also Neil Aronovitz, the artist. So watch the trailer for the second film we'll be talking about today. So I'm going to play you the trailer for How to Bend Concrete in 108 Easy Steps.
I find myself in an interesting position in life. Sort of felt a little bit blocked, maybe because I was so busy with other things. All of a sudden, to my surprise, all this creative energy started arising. I don't really know how I came up with this form. And it was really about all the universal forces. When smoke goes up, it goes up in a spiral. The way the Earth's magnetic field creates forms. If you split an apple, you can see the magnetic field in the cross-section of the apple. So there's all these different forms. And so there are these underlying forces that we're not even aware of. So that really gave me an appreciation of the power behind forms and seeing beyond the surface of the form. For years I'd go to museums and say I could do that, and then now I find myself doing it. There were so many, I call them all as lost moments. I'm always on pins and needles to see if they really like it, because they've always paid up front before they've seen it, and then it arrives and it's like, I don't know, but and so when they email me or call me and tell me they love it, it's just like, whew.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's introduce to the screen Mahesh Madhav, the director, producer, and editor. Hello.
Hi, good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. And also we have with us the artist that you saw there in the trailer, Neil Aronovitz.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for joining us. I found this film incredibly interesting. Mahesh, could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having us. So this is kind of a treatise for all content creators. Anytime an artist, or whether you're creating physical art or virtual digital art, you're crafting something out of your own passion and putting it out there into the world. And so this is a kind of a metaphor for anyone who creates something and the journey that they take from the ideation phase up to letting it go at the end. And I think that's why a lot of people tend to relate to it, is because it kind of has that quality of vulnerability to it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's there's one part where the concept of imposter syndrome comes up. Neil, I remember you talk about that one bit, and I found it's very wonderful to kind of just literally just see someone, putting their idea in action and putting any fears like that aside. So that's a sort of wonderful aspect of this film. Okay, so I'm going to bring everyone else back in. We have Jan Jelinek and Jay Feather. Here we all are.
Hello, everyone.
Five of us on the screen now. So I'm just I'm just going to ask a number of questions really to all of you about both of these films. So first of all, starting with the origin, how everything started with your films. So let's begin with Neil, seeing as you've only just joined us. So can you tell us how everything began for you with this documentary?
With the film.
Yeah, with the film. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been working on these pieces, and I have known Mahesh for quite a while, and so he approached me and expressed an interest in filming, and I thought it was an intriguing idea. And again, you brought up imposter syndrome, and I thought, am I worthy of a film? Would it be interesting enough? And so I was curious to see what direction he would go in, and so I agreed to it. And Mahesh took it from there, and I followed his lead, and there was a lot of give and take, and synergy between the two of us. And I think we both entered it with very few expectations, and let it unfold, and very much like a work of art, another. And it was a very interesting process in that regard.
Yeah, fantastic. So I suppose there's two perhaps two levels to that. There's the actual art piece itself, and then the film being made about it that you're having these imposter syndrome thoughts about.
Yeah, and it's funny because I just came from my studio this morning. I'm making another World Console, which is the piece that's in the film, and I keep learning new things about it. And I know Mahesh kept on developing skills as well. So there's in Zen Buddhism, something called beginner's mind, of always being open, never thinking you have it mastered, and being open to perfecting the art process. And at the same time, the process perfects you. And so it's there's that openness is really the definition of art. And I think that the power in the final result is a reflection of all the energy and experimentation and risk that went into the making of it.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to Mahesh. Let's stay on the origins of things. Neil's already told us about it from his perspective, but can you tell us from your perspective?
Yeah, this is also the largest or longest film that I've done, biggest project I've done. And so I think we're all first-time filmmakers here in this forum. And by being first time, you're learning so much, you're pushing the boundary of your abilities, and just seeing what comes out, and then putting it out there for the world to judge. And so then again, there's this meta quality of the film is also about me and my struggles, and so that's kind of a philosophical way to look at it. Your question was origin. So this kind of this started as a class project. I was taking a class at a local media community center where I volunteer, and wanted to learn more about how to interview people. So we brought in Neil to do the interview, and we talked to him about his process and so on, and that could have turned into like a really quick 1 or 2 minute film. But really, when you want to do a short documentary, you need B-roll. So I decided let's go to his studio and capture his process. He's doing this casting for the first time, and I'm going on set for the first time with my own equipment and my my wife and my friend as crew. And so we ended up going back to the studio 12 times over the course of 6 or 7 months, and it just turned into a much larger project than I expected. And the thing is, when I jump into something, I want to do it well, and I just kept going with it, and it turned into something that I never thought would be possible, but I just kept walking in that direction.
Excellent, thank you very much. So yes, it seems there's a theme of first films with these two films. So this is the first film you've made. Yeah. And also Neil, this is the first is this the first? Is this is the first film that's been made specifically about you?
Yes, it has been.
Yeah. Okay. So Jan had the extra benefit of sort of an experienced DP. What the next question is about any difficulties, learning sort of experiences during the filmmaking. And so let's start with let's go back to Mahesh and ask you and any kind of difficulties you had during the making of this film, which you maybe learned from.
So many interesting little tidbits. You know, there's like the day that I went and set up my camera and we were ready to shoot, and I left my SD card at home. So go back and get that. And each time you make one of these mistakes, never to do it again, right? So it all kind of builds up on top of one another. The cool thing about we're making a documentary, and usually when you have if you're documenting, you're kind of run and gun, and you capture whatever you get and then turn it into the story later. It turns out that when Neil was in the zone casting his table for the first time, this photo right behind here, when he wrapped the cloth around the mold, it was short about 3 inches the first time. And so he had to unwrap the whole thing and then redo it. And now it was only 3 inches too long or something. And he had to do it 3 times. And as a documentarian, that's kind of gold, because now you can take your camera, set up in a different direction, and capture more B-roll to get different angles. So I only had 1 camera, but I had 3 chances to get a really good shot. So what you see is really spliced together different angles and different sequences to make the film.
Amazing. Yeah, I do always find that very interesting with any kind of documentary film. Just the amount of angles and my imagination does start kind of telling the story in chronological order and trying to work out how much was caught, how much was kind of shoved in to sort of fit with the thing. So does that mean that you were celebrating Neil's problem while he was?
Yeah, I was taking advantage of it. The table flipping scene also, that was actually 2 different tables that were being flipped over, and that's kind of a funny story. When I was filming it for the first time, I was in too tight, and Jay, the DP, will tell you, like, oh man, like, if you're in too tight, I couldn't change my lens. And I asked Neil, can you flip it back over and we could do it again? And that led to some good laughter, because you're you can't unflip a 150-pound concrete table. That's not how it works. So luckily we had the second Olsen twin was kind of waiting in the wings, and they bring her in and flip a second table, and then I was able to put the camera on sticks, pull back a little bit, and get a different shot that I really liked. So that again is spliced in two different sequences.
Thank you very much. So this is a similar question, but slightly more positive. What was rewarding during the process? So let's start with Neil. Can you tell us any rewarding moments throughout the process?
Well, I can answer on several levels. The final result, it was interesting because like when you start any work of art, it can go in any number of directions. And so there were infinite number of stories that Mahesh told. And so it was interesting to see his how he narrowed down the story and edited out, from dozens of hours of footage into a 20-minute plus minus story. And it's very similar to the decisions you make in a work of art. There's any number of things you can do, and you choose to go in one direction. So that was a kind of an affirmation of the choices that you have to make in a work. And now I think what was reinforced for me is the decision actually to even do this kind of work. When I embarked upon it, I decided I'm not going to try to make money out of this. I'm not doing it for the money. I am just going to try to realize, my highest vision and do things that are interesting to me and challenging. And in the process of being filmed, I couldn't really indulge in any ego. Like, how am I looking? How is this going to come out? I just had to be as real as possible, and just be authentic, and not even think about the camera. And so that was, and I think maybe that was part of the effectiveness of the film, is people have mentioned that it's just very real and authentic and exciting, because you really don't know how it's going to come out in the end. And I didn't know either, so there's no pretending. And so it was really, as I say, it was a nice affirmation that there's no faking it in art. That you've got to come from a really as pure place as possible. And I think Mahesh was coming from the same place, which is why it made it so easy to work with him. It was just looking at the moment. All right, what's happening now? It's not going the way we expected, but you just go with it. And so, both in terms of process and result, it was a great learning experience for me.
Amazing, yeah, and that's an interesting point, seeing as we were just talking about blocking out shots and what have you. With the documentary, it's almost the other in reverse, perhaps. It all comes down to the edit, is where you're working out.
Well, one of the things that I am fascinated by directors, and in fact, I love to go on YouTube and listen to directors talk about their work, and it's been interesting to see, like, some of them talk about their favorite shots or sequences have been a surprise. Like they say cut, and they say, wait, keep the camera rolling. And then what happens then is it's magic. Those unpredictable moments are actually where the magic happens. So yeah, I often think that
it's good to stay open to. Yeah, you often kind of notice that when you compare sort of visual effects parts of a film compared to in-camera live action, there's more kind of mistakes happening that sort of become very key parts of the movie. Whereas when you're very specifically organizing exactly what each frame is going to be, then that's what I find.
What I find interesting about the films of John Cassavetes, because it was so much improvisation in the filming, and I think it's what makes his films really beautiful and dynamic. Because there's that lack of control, but it's still going in a definite direction. But it's exciting because you know that they're winging it. So,
so I suppose so sticking with this. What we were just talking about, what was rewarding, but also Mahesh, this whole concept of having to work out the story after you've shot everything. How was that for you?
Yeah, it's very interesting and rewarding. Going off of what Neil was saying, there's kind of this saying of, like, you look at thoughts in your head, and when one thought ends, then another one begins. But there's a space in time between the two thoughts where there's this authenticity of going really deep. And when you capture that essence, I think that leads to how the audience receives the story, and they can tell that the artist or protagonist is not faking it. This is just, we are a fly on the wall. And part of that is, like, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, right? Like, you want to be there, but you don't want to perturb what is happening, because then now you've become an agency in the story. And that's the one thing that we want to do, is not change what's happening, either physically or whatever is happening in Neil's head. And so one of the things that has come out of that is, when you look at the title of the film, I chose How to Bend Concrete. That's really a play on, like, how do you put yourself in the correct mental posture to do this kind of artwork with such passion and devotion, but still be able to detach from it at the end of the day. And that's where that's how do you put yourself in that position? How do you So that's kind of where we're coming from there.
Yeah, that is a great title. And actually, you just made me think that, so you're saying about capturing the moment between the thoughts, and where it comes across as authentic. And I suppose this is the thing. This is the what good acting is sort of attempting to simulate.
Yeah.
And my next question is about influences for all of you. Any kind of influences filmmaking wise, a particular filmmaker or a particular performance or a shot or a type of film, anything that has influenced you in the realm of filmmaking. So how about you, Mahesh?
Yeah, I'm also out of my element a little bit here. There's so many AV type activities that come through our lives every day. We're influenced by them all, even television commercials, right? YouTube videos and so on. I can say that I'm a scientist and engineer by training. And when I was growing up, I loved the Nova documentaries and, Ken Burns, of course, trying to tell a story in a way that holds you and wants you to see what's going to happen next. I really love science fiction from the narrative standpoint, mainly because if you look at science fiction, all it is you basically take someone and give them some special superpower and then see what they do with it and how that influences their world. It's really what boils down to it. And you could tell so many wonderful stories that way. And of course, the VFX makes those amazing too. But that's kind of what I spend my time watching.
I too am a big sci-fi fan. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's sort of it's not necessarily about the technology. It's more about what the characters, what situations happen in that sort of fantasy world. And Neil, do you want to add to this? This question is I'm regretting it, but let's continue.
Well, push through.
I'd like to bring up, like as I mentioned, I love to. I'm very inspired by directors and the artistic process, and I've been impressed with two directors that have translated into have affected my artistic practice. I took a master class online with Werner Herzog, and I was really blown away by how much energy and commitment he puts into it. If you see the film Fitzcarraldo, it's about carrying a ship over a mountain. And sometimes that feels like what it takes to create my pieces. It takes a Herculean effort. And Herzog has expressed that even with his main actor, I forget his name, Klaus Kinski. He threatened to kill Kinski before one scene. So it's made me realize it takes that kind of commitment. And then also I've seen analyses of Quentin Tarantino's films, and it's made me realize that in any kind of craft that you take up, you really have to know the history. And he's pretty much seen every film. And, it's made me realize that, you've got to study who's done what behind you. Know the vocabulary of the industry you're in, and have like a good working knowledge of what's come before you. And so those have been some film influences that have transferred to my own art and craft work.
Hey Neil.
Yes.
Neil, I recommend you watch Burden of Dreams, which is a doc made about the making of it's unbelievable. I just watch it. It's unbelievable.
Now I can't remember whether.
Thank you for pointing that out. I will watch.
You've made me think now whether it's the documentary of the making that I've seen or the film itself. I can't actually remember.
You probably saw the documentary, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
perhaps it should have been called "How to Carry a Ship Over a Mountain in 108 Easy Steps." An alternative title. So, thank you for that, Neil. So, what about next question about what you all may be working on at the moment, if you can tell us, or something that maybe you've recently worked on or is coming up, and how that's been for you. Neil, I suppose you can tell us about
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm creating a world console that's going to go to England next week, and I started another one that's going to be going for a client in Florida. At the same time, I just got a commission for a chandelier going to California, so I'm working on that. But what's very interesting is I've kind of started I have an intern who's become an informal apprentice, and I'm teaching him how to make the world console now. And so it's very interesting to try to translate all these ideas. And some of the techniques that I'm teaching him have been something I just learned a few things like a month ago. So so now this is a project in itself. I'm transferring my knowledge to someone, and that's no less creative than making a piece. So a lot, and then I've got like 3 or 4. I shouldn't say 3 or 4. There's more like a dozen pieces that are waiting to get birthed, like sort of like airplanes circling the airport, waiting to land. So there's a number of pieces in development. There's quite can be a long lead time from conception to to creation. So multiple pieces in a state of creation. But yeah, I'm in the middle of another console. I've been doing them for 5 years, and they never get boring. They're all so different and also interesting. And yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it's very similar to filmmaking. It's an overlapping timeline of projects with all sorts of things happening along the way. So Mahesh, how about you? Can you tell us about anything you're working on?
Yeah, so I do work at a tech startup for my day job, and I'm lucky enough to we're small enough that I'm also the media guy, and they allow me to create media content for our YouTube channel as well as internal, and so it's been really fruitful for us and me in particular to work with an outside agency to help craft stories, interview people about their technology, about what they do, and put them out there for our investors to see and the public to see and get our name out there. And so that's ongoing. I have another shoot coming up in 3 or 4 weeks where we're interviewing the CEO. During the quarantine time, a bunch of us got together and decided to make one of those quarantine music videos. And so that was amazing. We actually did a Tom Petty cover and put that out just a couple of weeks ago. So I did the video for that.
Oh, fantastic!
We're keeping busy in the creative field here.
Were you in the video as well?
Yeah.
Wonderful. We'll all look it up as soon as we're done with this. We are kind of coming up to the end of the hour session. So what we always like to do at the end of these is to wrap things up. A little bit of fun. We like to play a little game of truth or dare. So don't worry, it's completely fine. So I'm gonna I'm either gonna be you choose truth or dare. I'm gonna ask you, depending on what you choose, either some kind of slightly more awkward question about the film or give you a dare. So let's begin. Who should we begin? Mahesh, truth or dare?
I'll take truth. It's not always boring. Sometimes it's more exciting.
Well, this is slightly tricky. Let me just have the biggest error you feel it. I'm kind of just reading. This is very unprofessional. The biggest error you feel you're being haunted by from the production, if that makes any sense as a question.
Yeah, I mentioned before that we went back to Neil's studio about 12 times. There's a big gap between the 11th time and the 12th time because I was just fed up. I'm like, how come your table's not done yet? And so there's this huge chunk, like right near the end, you're like, oh, well, he finished polishing it. But what happened between the time when he, cut off all the stuff and then he polished it? Like all of a sudden he's like, it's done. There could be like another sequence there in the middle. But I just, it was summertime. We were all out having a good time. And I just never went back to the studio. So I apologize for that, Neil. There's a little sequence there we could have done.
Well, I remember when I remember when I told you it's done. You said I was expecting to get this call. So.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're finishing with you, Neil. Truth or dare?
Well, first I'll embarrass myself by saying I've never played this game and I'm not quite sure what it is. So I'll embarrass myself further and go with dare.
Okay. Okay. Right. Here we go. Tell us a joke about concrete.
My God, are there any concrete jokes?
They're pretty solid.
The image that came to mind is God. There's a film with Bruce Willis where they have his feet in concrete and he's just they're waiting for it to dry. So this is not really a joke. I guess I don't know any concrete jokes, but this was like my funniest association with concrete. You know, Bruce Willis is naturally funny, so he's trying to talk his way out of it as the concrete's hardening. And I forget exactly what happened, but I think they ended up throwing him off the ship. But there's plenty of mafia concrete jokes I've heard too from films, and anyway, that's the best I could do. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Neil. Well, I can't think what film that is. Does anyone know? That's a Bruce Willis film.
It's about the gangster times. I forget. He's on a ship and he's a gangster and they're trying to get some information out of him. I can't remember the film.
Does anyone know what this film is? No. Okay, I'm gonna have to find out what this is. I've got another recommendation from doing these Q&As. Although the others I had titles, now I've just got Bruce Willis Gangster Concrete. But Google is an incredible tool. So thank you very much for that. You've all been fantastic. Both these films are incredible. I've personally massively enjoyed both of them. And of course, they're also quite different. So it's been very interesting having you all here in the same session. If you're watching, you can catch both of these films. The entire festival will be ending the end of tomorrow. So you've still got a chance to watch these films and all the others. You can get yourself a festival pass on Cinenso. I'm going to remove you all one by one. So thank you so much for being here, Mahesh.
Thanks.
Farewell. Have a good one. Neil, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And Jay, thank you so much. Thank
you. See you, John.
Thank you. And Jan, thank you. And farewell.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Cheers. And yes, so the next one of these sessions will be tomorrow. This is the last one with me. Tomorrow we'll be back with Ioana. So I've enjoyed myself thoroughly. I hope you have as well. Thank you very much. And I'll see you another time.